This is the first time that I've sort of gotten up in front of a group and explained why I'm running this here. And I am super excited that it's here in Issaquah. This very room, Paul and I were here 8 years ago looking for the endorsement of the Dems. And since then, it's been an incredible journey, and I've made a lot of friends, and some of them are here in the room. Dean Willard was on the King County Democrats and interviewed a young and inexperienced and somewhat nervous candidate, and was friendly and supportive, and here we are. So, good afternoon. My name is Tola Mart, and with your help, I intend to be the next congressman for Washington's 8th Congressional District. To explain to you why I'm up here, I need to go back to election night 2016. Back then, we liked to read the news. Back then, we liked to visit 538.com. Back then, we were confident that America would not elect a candidate who was woefully unprepared, degrading towards women, and enjoyed the sound of his own voice. I was the official statistician at the election night victory party my wife and I were going to. So I knew we were in trouble when my friends were still happily drinking wine and eating snacks. Guys, I said, I think we might lose this. We called up individual county-by-county data in Michigan and Wisconsin. I tried to stay optimistic. They still don't have Ann Arbor. You know, those college kids break blue. The night progressed. Our daughter Sophie was away at college in California, and she called my wife. She was crying along with all of her friends. My wife was trying to console her. Tracy is very reserved publicly, but when Clinton conceded, she too started crying. As hard as it was for my guy friends, I think it was that much harder for my female friends. For them, it was the ultimate case of a patently unsuitable male candidate defeating a well-qualified and prepared female candidate. Within a few weeks, it became clear that this wasn't just a short-term jolt. Some of us in Washington State took pride that we were here on the West Coast, surrounded by tolerant and outward-looking folks. But a few weeks later, vandals destroyed the sign in front of the Muslim Association Puget Sound in Redmond. And early this year, someone spray-painted anti-Semitic graffiti at Temple de Hirsch Sinai, one of the largest Jewish temples in Seattle. Some of us local leaders got involved in community response and support for the victims. We started talking about our fears regarding the normalization of hate. Congressional Republicans were notably absent in this dialogue. No, they were too busy cozying up to President Trump. They supported his absurd and unconstitutional Muslim ban. Congressman Reichert complained to King 5 when his constituents tried to let him know how they felt about that executive order. Until November, I thought the United States was headed in more or less the right direction. I was happy to keep my politics local, serving on the Issaquah City Council, to which I've twice been elected, helping to drive regional infrastructure issues, such as Best Starts for Kids and Sound Transit 3. I have publicly supported same-sex marriage, one of the few nonpartisan East Side electeds to do so, but otherwise stayed out of state and federal issues. In the Trump's election, the rise of local hate speech and congressional malfeasance came as 3 punches to the gut, and I decided I had to stand up and do something more. Ultimately, I decided to run for Congress because I worry that America's standing as a place where dreams can happen and opportunity can be seized is slipping. I also worry that with all the political division and partisanship, we're losing our sense of community. I'm running because I believe our government can do better. Lift people up, protect the vulnerable, and ensure basic rights. This starts with making sure every kid has the opportunity to succeed. We know that education is the best investment we can make towards long-term prosperity. Most Americans still don't have training beyond high school, but the living wage jobs of the future will demand it, which is why, if elected, my first piece of legislation will be to make 2 years of community and technical college free for all Americans.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine more we could do to fulfill the promise of the American dream than to give every kid the first step towards a successful career. The road to opportunity is often smashed by catastrophic healthcare costs. Every day, Americans face heartbreaking decisions on whether to pay for medical bills or essential family needs. And then President Trump tries to kill the Affordable Care Act in order to fund a $1 trillion tax break for the wealthy. Congressman Reichert says Trump Care wouldn't have removed anyone's coverage, when in fact it would have left 60,000 people in the district without basic health care. Unacceptable. That's not leadership. That's playing politics with people's lives. I need a podium, I apologize. The opportunities of the future are in grave peril due to the threat of climate change. We know over time that the dry side of the 8th is going to get drier and the wet side is going to get wetter. That's actually bad for both sides. Rather than pretending to know more than the scientists, our government needs to address global warming now before it's too late. I used to build rockets for a living, and let me tell you, it's not rocket science to want to provide a future for our kids. It's not rocket science to want to ensure that everyone has access to health care. It's not rocket science to care about our environment. And it's certainly not rocket science to want to work every day to ensure the promise of the 21st century, the promise of the American dream is alive and well as we continue into the 21st century. In the next several months, I'm going to take this campaign out to Bonnie Lake and Covington, Cle Elum, and Chelan, and every town in between. We as a people can return to common sense government, rooted in science and grounded in constitutional freedoms for every American. We can do our part in the 8th with your help. Please join me, and we will turn this ship around for Washington and for America. Thank you.
It's been a part of my life since I was, relatively young. I think I had my first paid campaign job when I was 18 and spent most of my 20s trying to decide what I wanted to do. Working on political campaigns, and in a few cases running them, including some congressional races. What's really important here is, first of all, is we have a great candidate who's stepping up and is making a very large personal sacrifice in order to do this. And what's at stake is 218 votes. If we can get, in 2018, if we can get 218 Democratic caucus votes in the United States House of Representatives, then that means that a Democrat, presumably Nancy Pelosi, will be the Speaker of the House. And every single committee and subcommittee of the United States House of Representatives will be chaired by a Democrat who is probably more likely, who he or she is probably more likely to be progressive than a Republican who's more likely to support the agenda of the current administration and what you're seeing come from Congress. That happens one district at a time. It happens one step at a time. We're 16, 17 months away from the general election. In order for us to be successful, we have to take some steps now. We have to do the things that we need to do in order to create the momentum so that we can win.
First, let me say, actually before, I just want to say one thing about Klahani. I'm so thrilled, this is an aside, I'm so thrilled to see that we had two candidates from Klahani here, because I was actually, 2 different years, I drove the Issaquah city goal to resolve Klahani and to help Klahani get local elected representation. So to see 2 candidates here now, and I was thrilled when Klahani chose to join Sammamish. I hope they would choose to join Issaquah, but that's fine. But the point is that they have local representation. We have candidates in front of us now from Klahani, and that just makes my heart warm. So back to your question around single payer. So first off, I think we should be honest. We shouldn't use the conversation about single payer to refight last year's election. I know that there's a lot of folks that feel that they were disenfranchised as a result of what happened in last year's election. We need to move on, and our battles are in front of us. I think that for a lot of folks, I think it's fine to talk about 2016 and why that motivates us now, and I'm so happy to see Indivisible and to see the passion that's out there in the community and the wonderful job that Indivisible did pushing Congressman Reichert. I feel Congressman Reichert did the least he possibly could in opposing Trump care. I mean, he sent out a press release an hour before the vote, and it's not like he went on. If he thought it was a bad bill, he should have gone out and told his fellow Republicans to vote against it, right? He didn't. But I think Indivisible did a great job putting the lens on him, and I encourage them to keep doing that as we move forward. So around single payer, I think that what Americans want is access to affordable health care. And I think that whether it's single payer, there's some great other systems out there. Germany, it's a nonprofit system, but it's not a single payer system, but the Germans love it. Japan is also a nonprofit system. It's not single payer, but their people love it. So I think we need to have a conversation. I think we need to understand people's fears and uncertainties about having access to their own doctors. I think that when we last talked about single payer, a whole bunch of people scared a whole bunch of Americans unnecessarily. I mean, remember death panels?
right? Remember the horrible, horrible lie that was death panels?
Bill
Right?
Atkins.
And so I think we need to have a conversation about how do we get there from here? How do we get to affordable access to health care for all Americans? And maybe it's single payer, maybe it's something like the German system, maybe it's something like the Japanese system. I don't know what it is, but clearly Americans feel so strongly about it. Americans have so rejected Trump care. It affords us an opportunity now to have that conversation. It shows the lie that Americans don't care about reforming health care. And so we need to take that opportunity and move forward with it in this upcoming election. Thanks.
And it's not going to be easy to uproot this because I've been watching this for a long time. And the redistricting, I know it supposedly is turning, but initially it made it completely secure for Riker. You know, he didn't really have to do anything. He would just get back. Now maybe it's becoming a little, I want to know, what is your strategy? You need a real clear strategy as to what you're going to do, because others have tried and failed for over the years. You know.
Totally fair question. And we've had some great previous candidates. Oh, Jason left already. I was gonna. You should be sitting down there. We have had some great candidates in the past, so I totally understand your question. I think that I'll tell you that already a lot of thought has gone into this campaign. I'll tell you that the timing around my decision to run, I had been thinking about it for some time and having some good internal conversations with folks that I know that are active in this area, people like Gloria and Dean and some of the other folks that I've known for a long time. But I wanted to see, I actually have a city council race this fall. I'm actually a city council candidate in 2017 before I'm a congressional candidate in 2018. I did not get an opponent in 2017, and that's what allowed me to pull the trigger on this. But we're already moving along really aggressively, and actually have Eric Hauser here is my campaign manager, and we'll be starting in about 2 weeks with the campaign. And we have, I'm gonna build on what we've learned previously in the district. I think that I'll say two things. One is I hope to execute really, really well. And I don't want that to sound in any way to complain about anybody else who's done it before. I do think I'm a little bit different in that I have had a contested race before that I've won. I've been a sitting elected official for 8 years. I have regional engagement in terms of I'm on the Growth Management Planning Council. I'm actually the chair of the Sound Cities Association Public Issues Committee, which is the arm of the Sound Cities Association that helps with regional political issues, which is why I help support Sound Transit 3 and Best Starts for Kids. So I think I have a CV that, for instance, I believe I'm going to force Dave Reichert to do debates. I think that having a candidate who has held elected office, I think this is finally the year where he has to step from behind the shadows and actually defend his record. So I think that's one area. And I think the other area is, we talked about already, there's an incredible hunger in this district that we haven't had in previous years. This is the anti-2010, right? We had a great candidate in 2010 in Susan Delbenning. And she didn't win partially because it was a tsunami year. There was no way a Democrat was going to take over a Republican district. I think we have the anti of that in 2018. I think if you look at the special elections that have already been held since last fall, I think they speak really well to a population nationally that wants something different. And so I think if you combine my experience, what I'm already doing in putting together a campaign organization, and the hunger that we're seeing in the district through Indivisible, through other means to say enough is enough, we're going to do things differently. And I'll point out one last thing. I'm an engineer, I'm a nerd, so I went and I reconstructed, I looked at the 2010 redistricting. What I did was I took the 2008 election and 2010 election, and I reconstituted the vote based on the precincts that are currently in the 8th Congressional District. The district got 1.5% more conservative. Now, 1.5% is not zero. I wish it hadn't been 1.5% more conservative. But I think there's a myth that it enshrined this district as a Republican stronghold. I think this year we're gonna show that this is a Democratic district.
Just one quick comment is please don't let people think that Reichert voted against the AHCA.
That's right.
Because he didn't.
That's right.
He voted for it in the Ways and Means Committee.
Exactly.
And everybody needs to know that.
Absolutely, and if you That's a huge point, and if you go to my website, the video that's up there, I spend 2.5 minutes, but I talk about that very issue, and I talk about the fact that he supported it in Ways and Means, and he told people that it was, like I said, that it wasn't gonna affect anybody's health care. We know that that couldn't be more wrong. And recently he said, well, the reason he voted against the final bill was because they didn't have the CBO numbers. Well, you never had the CBO numbers, and you voted for it before, so.
I think he was allowed to vote. I think that was it.
Well, we know.
Believe me, I will be bringing up his vote on the House Ways and Means Committee, I promise you.
It is 6 o'clock now, we're a little overtime, but I do want to give Tola a chance to offer some closing remarks.
Thanks, Gloria. And first I want to thank my fellow candidates who are up here, who their election is only 5 months away, and some of them have a primary, which is only 8 weeks away. So you need to get to know them better and support their campaigns, because mine's 17 months away. I want your money, but I also want you to support these great candidates. You know, this area has had a reputation over the years as being sort of quiet and an area that is not fodder ground for progressives and liberals. And I think I'm amazed at what I am seeing this year. I'm amazed at the quality of the candidates that I am seeing. And I think that we're going to see, as we head into 2018, a strength across the board in these races, that this area is an area that is strong for people who care about other Americans. To the questions around Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, that this is an area that says we care about all Americans, and we want to have a safety net for Americans as they reach for the sky, that they've got that kind of support, and we're going to see that in our candidates. So it's a really exciting time for me. We got a lot of ground to go. I'm really happy, so happy that you were all here today. This is, like I said, my first big public event. My campaign advisors are trying to keep me glued to my cell phone to make calls, but it's important to me to get out and start meeting with people and start having these conversations. So thank you so much for being here tonight.